such a rush, and I was like, yes.
Good morning. So if you guys want to follow along, while I do the step-by-step overview, at the end, we did present to the principals for the iLead about Cognia. So we can have Melissa come up and show what was presented about some of the items and whatnot. But you can go to the URL, which is newmexico.measuredprogress.org. Okay, when you log in, it'll take you automatically to this page. On the top corner, you'll see the users. If you want to click on that, I'll show you how to create your users. Yeah, so if you had an account last year, it's the same account. If you don't remember your password, you can always select forgot password. But your username is your email address. And if for some reason some of you don't have an account, just see us afterwards. You might want to just follow along so you can see. Okay, so once you click on the users, you'll see where it says create new user, and you can click on here. Okay. I know there's a lot of conversation. I think that's part of it. So once you click on, okay, like I said, at the end, let's just, we can have somebody help you get your account going. So anything with the red asterisk has to be populated. So the username, it should be the email address. Email address again, the first and last name. And then you're going to click on this drop down, which is the roles. So for everyone else at your school, it should be the test administrator. And then your school should populate automatically here. And then you just kind of continue along. So you click on admin. And then you're going to choose the subjects. So this is where it's going to be different. So if you already have test administrators in there from last year, it's going to default to science. Because this is the same portal we'll use for ELA and math, you're going to have to add the ELA and math to all your test administrators that were already in there to begin with. So like for elementary schools, a lot of the teachers might be the same, but it's only going to show science. But you're going to have to go in and then just add ELA and then add math to each of their accounts.
Which screen is that on?
Just a second. I know, can everyone, there's a lot of conversation and some aren't hearing. So let's start from the beginning. So if you can click on users from the top corner. Now you should see all your users that are currently at your school. Now if you want to add a user, that's someone not in your portal, you're going to click on the green where it says create new user. Does everyone see that?
Yeah.
Anything with the red asterisk has to be populated. So again, the email address you should put for the username. You put the email address again here, and then their first and last name. And then you're going to go over here to under roles and organizations, and you're going to assign what would be the test administrator role. your school should be the default school. You might have to click on it. And then choose administration. And then below here is where you have the subject areas. So like I said, if they're already in there, they're already going to be defaulted to science. If they're still at your school and they're going to be doing ELA and math, you're going to have to go, and I'll show you how to edit, and you can just add the other two subjects. So let me go back. And then you click on save. But
Are we allowed to delete people on the
yes, you can make them inactive, yes. So I have myself in at this one school, but currently I'm only showing as science. So I'm going to go in there, click on the little box. I'm going to add the ELA. I'm going to click again, and I'm going to add math. And then you go to the top corner, and you're going to save the user. So now I have, in my roles, I have both, I have all three, science, ELA, and math. So as you see below, now it shows all three. Does anyone have questions on far as how to add a user?
I just have a question. So we have two teachers that job share. So do I add them both, or do I add one and do one user for one class and just have them both use the same password?
No, I mean, you could add them. There's not a whole lot for test administrators to do within the portal, but you have to select a test administrator when you start to assign students in classes. So does everyone understand the user part of it? And then we'll move on.
So the user part of it is for test coordinators, is that?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, because you're already in there as an STC, and then test administrators would need to be added.
Remove a person as a test coordinator, you just,
You can just click on the edit. You click on this little thing right there. Oh, hold on. You click on the X. So you would click on an X to deactivate an account. And then you'll click on the orange where it says deactivate. And then that it doesn't delete them, but it deactivates them, and they will not populate in your list of test administrators. Okay, so wherever you're at in the portal, if you click on the balloon icon, it'll take you back to this page. So now if you click on administration, this page will pop up. So you should have what we suggested from the STC training to put in a ticket to have the software downloaded, pushed out on your devices. So if you haven't done that, you should put in a ticket. And not just, they want to know what computers, where the labs are, if you know the names of the labs, and they want to know what days you're going to be testing. So they make sure that they push it out in enough time for your students to be able to test. So if you haven't done that, you should put in a ticket, today. But if you would have one device you would like to put it on, maybe they missed one or whatnot, you can go from here and download from Windows or Mac. So you can click on that, and it's fairly simple. But that's not necessary if you have technology pushing out the software to your computers. What's different this year is that you have access to your proctor passwords. And you'll see that on this screen, and it's right here. And this is the proctor password right below. So if a student, for some reason, their test was paused more than 60 minutes, when the student goes to log back in or unpause his test, it's going to require the proctor password. So you are in charge of the proctor passwords. You shouldn't pass it out to each of your test administrators. Your test administrators should contact you if they need it, and then you provide it. If you want to do some site readiness, this is what this site readiness login is for. So basically the student kiosk, if you go to one of the student devices, and where this says username and password, you can put in the username and password and check to see if that device is ready. But that's not required. I mean, usually when technology pushes out, the software is ready to go.
Does that factor password stay the same?
It usually stays the same. Well, you can check your Chromebook and see if it's there. And you'll see the little balloon icon. It should pop up. So, but you should check it to make sure, even if technology does push it out, I would check to make sure at least one of your devices, then you know for sure it was done. Okay, so the next tab, go to Students. So PED loaded students from the 40th day. Last week, I loaded students with as of last Monday. So it's more current. So students are in your portal 3 through 8, depending on your level. They're all in there. You will have some students, though, that maybe have left your school, left the district. They're still going to be floating in there because my file doesn't delete any students. So for now, just leave them there. So you'll see them all listed. You can sort, if you click on here, you can, sort by last name. If you prefer, you can sort by the student ID. If you click on the little magnifying glass there, you can put in a state ID and look through your list. And if you look at the bottom, you can change the number that you see. I think it's 50. Is that what you guys see on your list?
Yes.
So you can change that. So the first thing I would do was make sure that all your students are there. So you can click on where it says Exports.
Can you speak louder, please?
Yes. If you export your roster, all your students will list. You can see this Excel sheet. And that might be easier for you to compare your list at your school. So I would first make sure all your students are there. You will notify us if any are missing. We need to add. We'll be the ones to add and move students from school to school. Okay, now to assign accommodations, you can click on the edit on the far right where the student is listed in the column, in the row. And now you see basic demographic information. If you scroll down, this is kind of if you had already assigned any accommodations, you'll see them listed below. Then to assign accommodations, you will click on Accommodation tab, and you'll see them listed. So you can actually go in now and assign accommodations for all your students, not just the science, because all your students are populated and you would go here. So that means all accommodations for all three, science, ELA, and math. And you can't, it's fairly clear, like the screen reader, it's available in mathematics and ELA only. What is new this year is text-to-speech for science is an accessibility feature. Last year it was only if students had it written in their IEP. So that is an accessibility feature, and you see it up here.
And you have to mark it for each kid.
Yes, but I'll show you a way. If you have a lot of students, I'll show you how to upload a file, and it's fairly simple. Some prefer doing it one by one to make sure it's done correctly. However, I'll show you that in just a few minutes. Does anyone at your school would require Spanish text-to-speech? So for Spanish text-to-speech, if you remember from last year, a software has to be downloaded on a device. So if you have, let's say, 20 kids that would need Spanish text-to-speech, the vendor will probably, if you have using Chromebooks, it's already embedded. So nothing has to be downloaded. If you're using a Mac or PC, the software has to be downloaded. but you're not going to get 20 licenses. You might only get 10 licenses, and those 20 kids would have to rotate in. So but you have to remember which devices you use for science, because those same devices will have to be used for math as well. So let me know if you're using a PC or a Mac. Let me know how many students would require Spanish text-to-speech, because then we'll have to have technology or someone at your school download the software on those devices. So when you're doing accommodation, yes.
If we have Chromebooks, it doesn't matter.
It's already, yeah, it's already embedded. Yeah, it's nothing that they have to download. It's just part of it. And as you know, last year this Spanish text-to-speech was not available on Chromebooks. It was only available on PC and Mac. So that's an improvement.
Claudine, can I mention one thing? I was just gonna, hi guys. On the accommodations for the STC training, that packet that we gave you, remember that last page was the one pager that had the universal accessibility and accommodations. So that might be useful to have as you're assigning accommodations.
So you would select by just checking off, and then you would just click save. And then you get the green saying that everything was okay. It'll usually, when you have an error, you'll get an error, and in the line or the area where you're doing something, it usually tells you what your error is. Yeah.
You said for each child, the accessibility feature of science, text-to-speech, English has to be turned on?
No, it has to be, you have to select for them in their accommodation so they have it. So for each student, you have to check off.
You said there's a way to do that?
I'm going to show you in just a minute.
Okay, just checking what
Yeah.
you said. I'm having a hard time hearing you today.
Okay. Yeah, so you'll have to, for text-to-speech, you would have to select for each. Each student would have, if you're going to go in individually. Okay, so if you want to upload like your whole school, assign accommodations, again, click on the exports and export accommodations. We're still in students. And your students will be listed here. And prior to, and I was showing you how to enter accommodations, I clicked on two things and it shows a 1. So basically, if you're going to add accommodations by upload, you would put a 1 for any of the columns that the student or any accommodation that they need. So it's pretty simple. So you received the portal guide. And if you go to page 33 on, that's where it starts. So this is step by step how to do all the steps that we're doing today. So if a student needed text-to-speech, you would just put a 1 and then move on to the next student. So each student will have 1 line. So it's different from Park, where each student had 2 lines. Now everything's just 1 big line. You would save it. You would save your file. And then you would click on the green Upload Accommodations tab. And it's not letting me upload. There it is. And then you would just click choose the file, and you will upload your file.
You save the file to our computer and then upload
Yes, And you can also, if you download the template, you're not going to get the student information. You would have to populate that. So it's better to do the export. So when you export that list, it has the students already there populated for you. So if you just click on here now, it just shows the actual template, doesn't have the students populated.
Is there pretty good success with downloading Excel and uploading in the Cognia system?
Yeah, I mean,
And is it pretty, if you download the file from the system whenever you upload it, everything pretty much matches?
no, because you have your students listed like I had it.
And you just put a 1 in there?
Yes.
Okay.
So as you can see, it'll have the students' last name, first name, and state ID. So Joanna, it does match because, but you have to just be careful you're using the right column.
If we upload the accommodations now and then something changes, can we re-upload the same document and it'll populate to the new information?
You can, if you're going to do like multiple kids, if you're doing individually, you can just edit the student profile, click on the accommodations tab, and unselect it. Yeah.
Do we have to do it this way, or
No.
we actually go into each student?
You can, I prefer that you go individually, this way you know for sure. Because not all students, because this way all your students are going to populate. Some might not need accommodations, and I would hate for you to be on a different row instead of the one row you're supposed to, and assign an accommodation to someone that doesn't need it. But there are some schools that would prefer this way. So we've seen how to add users. You see where your students are listed, so check your lists. We assigned accommodations, and now I'm going to show you how to create your classes. So clicking on the class tab, you're going to click on the create grade level class. You're going to have to name your class.
I'm sorry. You say classes? To go
So
back to
click on the classes tab on the top,
classes, okay.
and then you're going to click on the green on the far right that says create. So you're going to name your class. Here's where you're going to select your test administrators. Some want the teachers in there. Some in the past have put themselves as a test administrator because it's required in order to continue along. So it's up to you. If you have your test administrators, you're going to put yourself, that's fine too. And then you're going to click on grade. So if you click on a certain grade, only those students are going to populate here at the bottom. And as you continue to make a class, because this is selected here, it says show only students that are not assigned in a class, this area here will get more empty as you start creating more classes. For middle school, I know sometimes you guys test alpha order. I think if you remember me saying at the STC training, you can only have 90 students in a class. So if you're going to test all your students at once in alpha order, it's fine. You would do the first 90, and then you do the second 90, and then so forth. So that's fine. But you can only have 90 students. So to move a student into the class, you just highlight the student. You can hit the control key and do several at once. And then you click add. And then you're going to click, so see now how it kind of moved over here. And then you're going to click save. And now I just created my test class, my 5th grader, and it shows how many students, again, the grade level. Now you can, if you need to add another student, let's say someone just enrolled in your class at your school and you have to add them to an existing class, you can by just clicking on edit. and whatever new students available at your school would populate here, and you would do the same thing, click add, and then save it.
So for like, at middle school, if I'm gonna be testing science kids, obviously the 8th grade science kids, would I put them in a science class and then later would I move them to whatever class they're gonna test to for?
You wouldn't move them, you would just create a new class.
Okay,
Because here, you had to have, I missed a step as far as the, when you go to schedule your test sessions, there's where you go to select your thing.
okay. So,
You have to create a class for each subject.
Yes. Yeah.
I remember something kind of weird last year where like I had to have the accommodations done before I could put them in a class or something like
No.
that.
No, you can, but you have to. It's better if you check your students, assign accommodations, put students into classes. Because what happens is once you schedule your test session, if the student doesn't have the proper accommodation, and they're not going to have that assigned to them. Basically, you would have to move them out of the, and then. So it's
Assign
best.
accommodations first.
Yeah, I would make sure all accommodations are first before you go to schedule your test sessions. So you can't schedule your test sessions until Monday. So if you click on the test session tab, like if you try to click on that, nothing's going to happen because it doesn't allow you, the vendor won't allow you to go any further.
2 questions. Can you create your classes and then do accommodations? Does it still work that way, or should you do accommodations absolutely first before creating the classes?
You could create your classes, just do not schedule your test sessions.
Okay, and then I know for a fact that we have a 5th grader leaving and then another one coming. So the one leaving, do I have to delete them from it, or will they just automatically be taken out?
They're not going to be taken out, so just don't put them into a class. Just leave them floating in your system because we don't want you to unenroll any students.
Okay.
You can do it in there, but we don't want you to do it because then once you unenroll, then I have to do a transfer request to get the student in case the student comes back to another of APS schools. Yeah, so just leave them. Just don't place them into classes. So it's okay to have students still. If you go to create a class, you're still going to have some kids that are here. If you have any students taking the DLM, they're in the portal. Just don't place them into classes. At some point, we could probably go in and unenroll those students.
For students who have just come into the United States, I know they don't have to take the ELA, they do have to take the math, do they have to take the science?
Yes, if they're 5th grade, yes, or 8th grade. Yeah.
What
So-
did you say is not available till Monday, don't create classes until
No, test sessions.
When the window opens, right?
No, starting Monday, you can schedule your test sessions and print your tickets. That, I clicked on it now and it doesn't let me go any further. So starting Monday, and that'll be the same thing for when the MSSA. So that window, you can do everything up for the MSSA, create your classes even now. You just cannot go to schedule your test sessions until March 30th. And I think some of you remember me mentioning this at the STC training, since you guys are on spring break that week. I wouldn't suggest you test on that Monday you come back from spring break for the MSSA, because, you're not gonna, unless you work over spring break, you won't have your stuff ready. Are there any year-round schools? So the material, I'm not getting the material in the district until the 23rd. And you guys are on break that week and the week after, correct?
Yes.
So you'll get your material as soon as you come back on the 6th. That's when you'll get your material. Everyone else will get it before they go from spring break. We get it that Monday. Hopefully we get it a little sooner, but we'll make every effort to get it out to you by the end of the day on Friday before you guys go on spring break. But if you go to this portal guide, and go to page 62, This shows you what you're going to see once you click on schedule new test session. 62. You'll see the subject. You'll see the test. That's where you'll select a test. So, and then you'll see all your classes populated at the bottom. And basically you would click on, if you're going to schedule all your science classes, let's say Tuesday, you just highlight all of them and then you click on schedule. And once you do that, then if you go back to the next page, if you go to 63 and you click on view student details, this is where you're going to see, if you remember the access codes, you're going to see the list of your students, and this is where you're going to go to print your tickets. Next week we have drop-ins. So you're welcome to come for drop-ins. You can work, enter accommodations. We can go step by step to show you how to do this part since it's not available today. But this is where you'll see your test tickets. You'll see the list of students. Now, if you have a student, you've already scheduled your test session. I got a new student. I put him in my class. And now I go to view details to print their ticket. They're not going to automatically pop up in your list. You're going to see a little green box, and it's going to say generate missing student test logins. And any student you put in after you scheduled that class, that test session, will be in there. So if you click on it, then they'll populate in your list of students.
What's it called? Generate what?
It'll be, it says generate missing student test logins. And you can't miss it. It'll be right above here, above your list of students, and it's a green box.
Are any of the drop-ins, are the drop-ins only during the duty day? For like teachers who can't leave?
That's when we have it.
So you'd have to arrange a substitute or something if you're a teacher?
What time would you?
Well, I teach from my duty day 7:30 to 2:30.
Okay, well, I mean, if you can't make one of our drop-ins, you can always schedule a time with me and come. We can do a one-on-one. That's fine.
Of those hours?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, because we work 8 to 4:30, but I can stay longer if needed.
Thank you.
Does someone have those times?
That's the 26th from 1 to 4 and the 27th from 8 to 11.
And again, if those times don't work, contact me, and then you can come in. I'll let you know if I'm at City Center or the warehouse, and you can come and sit and work. I'm fine with that.
There's 2 from 1 to 4. They're on the PD calendar on our website. Is that the month of February? Yes. It's next week.
I know the Thursday one is in the morning, right?
Yeah, well, you could go to the calendar real quick. It's right here.
It's on the checklist.
It's on the checklist.
So if you open up your checklist, then you'll it's 220.
I'm going to open it up now.
Yeah, if you just go to the PD calendar, it's on there too.
Is that better?
I think so, so they could see them. So, right here. So it's the 25th, the 26th, and the 27th, and they're all 3 hours. So 1 to 4, 1 to 4, 8 to 11.
8 to 11?
25th is where at? That's the PD calendar on the assessment website, which is the last
Real hot dog.
It's at City Center.
If you click on them, it tells you all the information.
Yeah, you don't have to register. You just show up. You can work there. So if you have any questions, we're there next to you. So if you have students taking, I'm going to go back to classes. If you have students that need a Spanish test, they need to be in their own class. well, you go to schedule, because when you go to the test sessions to schedule that, that's where you're going to select an English or Spanish test. So just remember that, you know, those students, if you remember a little bit, they have to be put in their own class, because when you go to schedule the test session, there's where you're going to select an English or Spanish test. So we've been delivering materials since Tuesday. We'll finish deliveries at the end of the day on Monday. In your box, you're getting manuals. You'll get any paper tests you ordered in the initial order window. If you sent a request after that deadline, those should come in the district next week. Also in your boxes, you're gonna get blank scratch paper. There'll be one, enough for each of the 2 sessions. That has to come back. You'll also get a ticket tracking form. So this needs to be filled out. If you give your test administrator 25 tickets, you got 25 tickets back. At the end of the window, I need a copy of this, your test tickets, the used scratch paper. Also, and you'll get some signs for do not testing, my instructions, and this, it'll tell you, you know, where to go page to page, like adding users, page 14, and the portal guide that you received today. It tells you the times, it goes on, it kind of gives you some screenshots. And then in the back, it tells you where to go for the practice tests.
I just want to know on the scratch paper, do you want the student's first and last name, or does that not matter?
It doesn't matter, but once, even if they just put their name on it, it becomes secure. That has to be returned. If it's blank, the kid never does anything, you can keep the paper. If you want, just return everything and we'll shred it for you. But
if they write on it, they need a name on the paper as well?
no. No. Because you're just going to collect it after the first session, and for the second session, you're going to give them a new piece of paper.
Yeah.
So.
But you want that turned in?
Yes.
But it doesn't have to.
No, because we're going to shred it. We just want to make sure everything is returned to us, and we'll do the shredding of the test tickets and the used scratch paper.
For the ticket tracking form, can we use our own form? Do we have to use that one?
No, as long as you grasp what's the intent of it. It's just to keep track of, no, and that's fine. And we get those all the time. So you'll get this for the ASR, and then you'll get the same items with the exception of adding graph paper for the MSSA. So for the MSSA, you'll get graph paper, blank scratch paper. You'll get math reference sheets for middle school. You'll get math reference sheets for 6th, 7th, and 8th, and then for elementary for 5th. And if you go to the New Mexico Online Help.cognia.org page, you can get to, if you click on the ASR, you can get to the practice tests. And then it tells you where to go for the URL and how to log in, etc. And that's also on your instructions in your boxes. If you've received them, it's here on the back the back page. Yeah. The one for the MSSA is supposed to be available next week, so we hope that's available. Right now, there's not much you can click on the help page for the MSSA. Does anyone have any questions that we might not have covered? Yes.
It's for the NMSSA. I have a student who has to have it in Spanish, and I know for the English language arts, I need someone who can read it to them in Spanish. Do the directions for the math portion also have to be read in Spanish? I'm having to get a different teacher to test.
Yeah, the script is, so in your manuals, you'll get one manual. There's English and Spanish, so you won't get 2 separate manuals. Everything's combined in one.
So all 5 tests will have to be given to him by the person who tests in Spanish.
Yes, because they have to read the script to him, like the instructions have to be read to him in Spanish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it okay to give him 2 in one day, or no, because they technically have all day to complete the test?
to,
We have one person who can read in Spanish and she doesn't teach that grade, so we're gonna have to get a sub for her.
is this for the science?
No, he's a third grader,
Oh.
so it's just for the NM. and-
That might be too much.
Okay, so just half a day sub.
Yeah, because that might be too much for what, I mean, the older kids, I can see doing more than one session, but the younger ones,
After she reads the directions, is there anything else she's gonna have to do, or could
No.
I stay in there with him?
You
once
could
she's
stay
read
in
the
there.
directions so
Yeah.
that- Okay, that'll make it a lot, we haven't had to test someone in Spanish.
yeah, it's just the instructions for this in the script and your manual, you'll see, you know, you have
So
to tell
he will
them.
stay with me.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So last year, we were the 4th and 5th grade students when we did like park not park. We could test them together because the directions were the same. Is that the same this year? And also, is 3rd grade going to be the same with 4, 5? Or is it
No.
different, same as
So
last
for math, all of the math is the same unit times. But for 4th and 5th, their unit time's different from 3rd. So if you had like I forgot what school had a 3rd, 4th combo class, they had 2 of them, so they're gonna do all their 3rd graders together and all their 4th graders. No, but for 4th and 5th,
this year?
yeah, but for 4th and 5th, but then it's just better for them because in case some of them finish, then they could go. They might finish quicker, is what I'm saying, because the test is not as long for them, and that could be a disruption.
So 4th and 5th
Yes.
together. Okay.
Yeah.
We should keep separating.
Yeah, but 3rd I would probably, just because they probably finish a lot sooner than the older ones.
So if we're testing in Spanish and English, can they be in the same room and hearing both sets of directions?
They can be, but just do it as less of a distraction as possible. Because we don't want to, especially if you just have one student, you don't want to single out that one student having to test by themselves. I don't think that's fair. So I would just,
Test them with their group.
Yeah.
They get their person standing near them, reading in Spanish.
yeah,
Okay,
that would be fine.
okay.
And remember, because it is untimed, they still need to finish that session within the day. They cannot continue the next day. If you have someone that goes home sick, we'll have a help desk for the ASR as well as for the MSSA. Next week, we'll send out that number where you can call for the ASR. Let us know if you have a student that's sick, and then we'll make that determination if, because of that situation, if they can come back the next day to retest or continue testing.
I thought they were not gonna time the students this year.
It's not timed, but each session has to be finished within the day. They can't start a session and then continue it tomorrow. It has to be finished within the day. They can start when school starts and have till the end of the day to do it, but it has to be done.
For the paper versions,
Mhm.
what is the deadline that we need to request them by, or to tell you?
The window for the ASR is like that week before the window closes.
Okay.
So there's time in case you guys forgot. And then the MSSA, that's still going on. And I know everyone's a little worried because of ordering Spanish because the waivers haven't been sent out yet. The last I heard, PD said that last week they're in the Secretary of Education's hands and he has to go and approve them. So they did a little bit more thorough checking to see, I think, if students had come from other states. And I think that's what's taken so long this time.
So should we email you our request to assessment, or is there a form? that you-
There was a form, but you can email me. That's fine too.
Just for paper?
Yeah, for paper, yeah.
When will we find out, for our child who has to have his cell phone within a certain amount of feet because of his pump? We haven't heard back and he has to take the science test, so do I just not give it to him?
No. We are getting some back. I'll have to check to see if yours
Do you want me
was.
to send you an email?
No, I'll check before I leave here. Before you leave here, I can pull it up and see. Because we got some that were approved yesterday, a big chunk of them. So I'll see if yours was in that one.
Okay, thank you.
So just on the timing thing, say they start the test an hour and a half before the end of school, they're not finished within that 90 minutes, do they just leave it? They don't go back into it and finish it the next day?
No, because it has to be finished within the school day.
And so if they don't, we just end it and that's the end of that?
That's the end of that, exactly. Because even though it's untimed, you wouldn't want to start them so late in the day anyway. You want to make sure you give them enough time to finish the test.
Well, we have time blocks of at least an hour and a half, but
it's just, and then because you have students typically that maybe last year you marked as needing extended time, you want to make sure those students, you're going to expect them to take a little longer. You want to make sure you start them earlier enough in the day. You don't want to start them so late in the afternoon that they can't finish. You want to give them enough time because they have to, even though it's not timed, they have to finish within the school day that one session. Yes.
So one of our ideas, since it's not timed now, is to like have a finishing room. So I want to see what your thoughts are on this. So like the class is done, except for one student. Is it okay for the student to like would pause their test, everyone leaves, they come to the finishing room to finish?
That'd be fine.
But can they go eat their lunch and then come to the finishing room?
No. You'd have to bring the lunch to them. You could bring the lunch to them, but they cannot, because we don't want them interacting with the other students. I'm sure they're not going to talk about what was on the. But
go straight to the finishing room.
Yeah. So you would have to, you know, if they're working on a Chromebook, you hand carry that Chromebook, set them down, get them back in, and then make sure someone's in there, of course. But yeah, but
Change their physical space.
yes, that'd be fine. Yes.
So yeah, so if they're on like a desktop in a lab, you can take them to a room and put them on a different computer?
Yeah, you would just pause their test, and then you would go and log them back in.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Well, I was just going to add, it's not a question, but the whole thing about finishing within one day. A kid is not only do they have to finish, but they're guaranteed a whole day to do that test.
Yeah.
So starting a session, I know some people are doing this, 90 minutes before the day ends isn't fair to those kids.
No.
Right.
And did you have something? Oh.
Okay, I'm back to the users, adding users.
Uh-huh.
So myself, I am set as a test coordinator, but I'm also a classroom teacher. It will not let me edit my information to allow me
Because
to do it.
you have to create another account.
I tried to. And it didn't.
But you cannot have the same username.
Okay.
So the same email address is fine. So you can just put, a lot of times some of them put, their first initial last name as their username.
Okay.
The email can be in there multiple times. It's just the username can be the same as your STC.
Okay, so I was like, oh no.
Yeah. And a lot of them do that. They just go in and put themselves and not put all the test administrators. And then they just go by maybe the class, naming it by the teacher that's going to be assessing the students.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're having a little bit of trouble with what is being written in IEPs for accommodations versus what is listed here. So for example, I'm looking at this one that says for the science test, read aloud test questions and answer choices for the student. Is that a human reader?
That would be a human reader, yes. And of course, those students cannot be with the regular students because that would be a disruption to both sides.
Right. So does that student need a tester, a one-on-one test?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
For the text-to-speech, what are they reading? Are they reading just the directions for the accommodations or the whole?
The text-to-speech, it'll read everything on there. Yes. Yeah.
And I just had a clarifying question when we were talking about the Chromebooks naturally have the text-to-speech, but for the other.
For Spanish text-to-speech.
Oh, just for the Spanish.
Yeah.
So if you have Spanish, so the
If
text-to-speech regular
is
fine.
all over and you don't have to install nothing, it's fine. It's just the Spanish text-to-speech, yeah. Yes. No, but she's saying that in that specific IEP stated for someone to read aloud, and that's not for a regular student. Yeah. Any other questions? Melissa, do you want to pull up your iLead stuff and? Do you need this? Here is the. Where was it? Hold on. Does it matter which one I put up?
No.
Where was it though? Where was it?
So, I'm just going to show
Right
them
here?
where it's at. Yeah. So on the assessment website, under either elementary or middle school, if you click on that, there is a presentation that I just wanted you guys to be aware of. So when you click on elementary or middle,
scroll down to the bottom where it says quick links, and there's one that's called I Lead Cognia presentation. So this was a presentation that we did for the principals at their monthly meeting in February. So I just wanted you to know that this is available for you guys to utilize. Let me put it in a present format.
Excuse me, Melissa, is it
Yes.
the same place?
I'm sorry?
How do we get to it?
Oh, so from the assessment website, the Google site. So sites.google.com. Once you're there, if you click on elementary or middle school, and you scroll down, let me go back. There's a lot of really important things down there, by the way. So you're used to going here, for example, but if you keep scrolling down, there's also like the video from the spring STC training. There's the PowerPoint from the STC training, but the one that I'm referring to right now is the I Lead Cognia presentation. So this one, like I said, was presented to not every single principal, but whoever attended this particular session for the monthly principal meeting. And so this is just another resource available to you guys. Like if you want to share this with your staff, it's got additional information in it as far as maybe a little bit of details about both the ASR and the MSSA. So, you know, it has links, for example, to the fact sheets that are just the basic overviews of each of those assessments. And just really has some information as far as like what's the same between, let's say, like the MSSA and the PARC, or the prior transition test, and then what's changed. So just kind of a presentation here that will help you guys support that at your school level. So really, as far as what's the same, remember it's really the same test structure, blueprint. Those are identical to last spring's transition assessment. And then the test items are still fully aligned to this Common Core. And then as far as the scores, that's going to be comparable to what's been in the past. That's something the PED wanted to make sure of. And then as far as what's changed, we know that they're not timed. We know that the platform's different, but it's nice that you guys are going to have that same platform for both tests. And then keep in mind for the ELA, there's field test items that are embedded within. So I'm not going to go through this entire thing because we've kind of talked about some of this, but there's links again to the blueprints that we provided you guys at the STC training that has a lot more finite details about the tests. Just reminders about the structure of the math. This is what the calculator drop down will be like. For grades 6 and 7, it's a basic. Grade 8's a scientific, although they're also able to bring in just their handheld calculator that they're comfortable with. These are the types of math items that'll be on the test. This is not on the blueprint. So for this year, there isn't going to be any technology enhanced items. That'll come in the future. And that's because of the transition to the Cognia platform, or iTester. And then language arts. So this is just a close-up of from the blueprint for ELA. And one thing I wanted to point out that it's the same as it was for the transition last year in that prior to the transition in PARC, the students had the 3 units for ELA, and now they just have 2. So this is just a reminder about that. So all students are going to have a research simulation task. So that's your informational text. It's going to be Unit 2, I believe, according to the blueprint. So in this, they're going to have, of course, your basic questions that are linked to the passages. Oh wait, I skipped. But the writing, keep in mind that it's heavily weighted. The blueprint has the number of points that everything's worth. But writing is like about 35 to 40 some % of their overall score. So just keep that in mind. For research simulation, they're getting points for both reading and writing claims because they're providing analytical reasoning for their and displaying their comprehension of the text through that writing. So keep that in mind. So while all students are going to get the research simulation, some students will get literary analysis and some will get narrative. So that's where it's a little bit different than it was in the past. So just pointing that out to you guys. I don't know that the principals were aware of that. So that'll be in Unit 1. So as far as preparing, make sure that students are familiar with both. I mean, that's part of their curriculum, part of the standards. So, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. And then also on this PowerPoint are some links for formative practice. So there's the link to the math practice items, ELA practice items, the STEM gauge. So these are the formative tasks that I mentioned during the STC training. This is the direct link to that. And then there's also an evidence statement report that has been updated. It's part of our SAPR visualizations. So that's in there where you can kind of take a look at, how are students doing at your school with some of the evidence statements over the past several years. And if there are certain areas that you want to focus on, then that's where you would go to the practice sets. So these are all active links. And then the links to the practice tests. So next week the MSSA practice test will be available. So I just wanted to show you guys that really quick. Any questions before we finish up? Yes.
I'm not sure if this is already said, but do we have to, the teachers go in and start and stop sessions like we used to have to do before?
No, I'm actually going to, Sherry asked me that question, so let me.
You want to go back to that? Sure.
I can. No, it's fine. You can do that.
Oh, okay.
I can't show. So from the list that you show, where you go, the screen where you're going to go after you schedule your test sessions, you're going to see all your students there. That's where you're going to go to print your tickets. Right above it, you're going to see an access code for session 1 and an access code for session 2. So the students will log in with their username and password. They're going to be taking session 1, let's say. Then somewhere on the board, wherever you can display it, you're going to put that access code for that session. The students will then put in that access code and then the test will start. So it's not like Park where you had to prepare your sessions, start your sessions, and then the students can log in with their username and password. It's the access code that gets them to sign in to that particular session.
Is that both tests then?
For both the science and the ELA and math.
Does it show the students, say they were absent that day, is it displayed that they haven't taken that assignment?
So if you look at the list of students, you'll see that on the far right, you can see when they started, because it's timestamps, when they started and when they stopped. And of course, that'd be a way to tell if there's nothing there, then they didn't, for makeups and etc. And it'll have it for each of the sessions. For ASR, you'll see session 1, session 2. You'll see when they started, when they stopped. Does that answer your question?
Yes. And then I just have one more about the restroom.
No, they can be escorted to go to the restroom.
They have to have an escort.
Yeah, so I would just pause their test and then have them go to the restroom and then unpause when they come back. Just so then their screen's not displayed with their test material.
One concern that we had brought up about that, so we usually use parents to escort students back and forth, and now they're saying with the new background check, the only parents that can do that are the ones that have full background check. Is
That I don't know what I mean, but you know, other than that's an requirement for them to be there on campus, then yes, as well as giving test security.
One they can be, it's like the normal background check that they all have, but now they have to do another one that they have to pay more. It's a full background check, and these are the people that are allowed to be alone with students. Like,
I would
they go
say
on a field
that,
trip and have a
yeah.
group. So in theory, most of our parents will not be able to do bathroom monitors, bathroom escorts, because they don't have the full access, like the full background check.
But they're really not gonna be alone with the kids, right? Because I mean,
Exactly.
If you have inside campus, I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, it depends on how the campus is set up, right? Because
I mean, I would double check with your administrator, but to me it sounds like they need the full background check because that's, I mean, they could be alone with them. Bathroom, yeah. I'd want to err on the side of.
Yeah. Any other?
Do you have to have two people in the testing room? Can it just be the TA, or does
If
it
there's
have to
more
be
than 25 students, then yes, you have to have an additional person. That's the ratio. 1 to 25 is one person, and then you could have one test administrator and an EA just to have the extra person, because the EA is not, if they're not licensed, they can't administer. So the test administrator would be the one to read the instructions, etc. But you have the extra person in the room, you know, to help proctor, and especially if there's more than 25 students.
So at the Cognia training, the actual, when the Cognia folks presented, they said they were adding a third session to language arts. Did that not happen? It's just the two?
I don't believe, have you heard anything different?
They have not.
They-
I
as
think
of
they
now?
embedded field items,
Within,
maybe.
and
Yeah.
instead of adding another section, yeah. And again, the middle school will test just grade level, not by, you know, algebra 1, geometry. It's strictly by grade level, so all 8th graders will take the 8th grade test for math.
Okay.
Thank you for coming, and then next week, like we say, we'll have those drop-ins, and if those times don't work, you can contact me. One of us, you know, I'm available. I'll just let you know where I'm at, and you can come in, and you know, if you need more of a one-on-one, and especially because I can show you how to schedule the test session.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.
You know, I do take risks in life. I don't really feel like eating my leftover lunch that was laying over the yesterday. yeah, that's fine.
I'm gonna stop it right now.